What's up, guys, and welcome to the Foot and Fist Sports Network, where today we're going to be talking about Glover Teixeira versus Rashad Evans in UFC Fight Night. Originally, the main event of this card was going to be Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony El Cucuy Ferguson, but unfortunately, Tony Ferguson was forced to be taken off the card due to injury. The fight was going to be a title eliminator, and the winner was going to take on Rafael dos Anjos, probably at UFC 200. It's very unfortunate because I was really looking forward to that fight. I think that those are the two best guys in the division, probably not counting Dos Anjos, and I was really, really looking forward to see who was going to be able to take the claim and be the legit number one contender. Instead, Glover Teixeira and Rashad Evans are going to be headlining, and Lyoto Machida versus Dan Henderson was also scrapped because Lyoto Machida was caught taking an illegal substance, and he later admitted to it. So Namajunas versus Torres is the co-main. Khabib Nurmagomedov will be taking on Daryl Horcher, an unknown fighter who is basically being fed to the wolves, and it'll be interesting to see how Khabib comes back. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with John Dodson versus Manny Gamburyan. John Dodson, he was on a 3-fight winning streak before he took on Demetrius Johnson and got destroyed basically. But losing to Demetrius Johnson is pretty fashionable these days. He's, if not the number one pound for pound fighter, he's the number 2 pound for pound fighter, and he's just perfect in every way. His striking is perfect. His grappling is elite. There's just not a single hole in his game, and there's no shame in losing him, especially since he was a little bit distracted due to his child being born, like right a day. I think it was like 2 days before the fight. So, there were reasons that he didn't perform at his best, but still, I think that moving up to 135 to take on Gamburyan is probably the best choice since he does have 2 losses against the 125-pound champion. And it'll be interesting to see what he can do at this weight class. He competed there in the Ultimate Fighter. He won the whole thing. He knocked out TJ Dillashaw. And it'll be interesting to see what he can do against the bigger man, Manny Gamburyan. I think he will finish him, more than likely in the second round. Next up is Bethe Correia versus Raquel Pennington. Neither one of these two chicks is particularly good in my opinion. I think Raquel Pennington's best quality is that she's very tough, whereas Bethe Correia basically just has heavy hands. So I think that if Bethe Correia doesn't manage to get the finish early on, then Raquel Pennington will probably grind out a decision. And, nothing too spectacular here, so I'm just going to move on. Next up is Beneil Dariush versus Michael Chiesa. I think this is probably going to be the sleeper fight of the card. Both guys are very tough. In particular, Michael Chiesa always puts on very entertaining performances. He never gets a TKO, but he gets lots of submissions. And in general, he's just a very brutal guy. Lots of elbows, lots of knees. He likes to punish his opponents, and that's why I think he is one of the more entertaining fighters in the UFC right now. And I think that he's going to be just a little bit too much for Dariush, who is 26 years old. He's young. He's got really good grappling, and he is one for the future. But I think Michael Chiesa is just going to be a little bit too good for him right now. And I think Chiesa is going to pull out a decision in a very, very entertaining fight. Next up, we got Cub Swanson versus Hakran Diaz. Hakran Diaz's biggest claim to fame is the fact that he is Jose Aldo's cornerman and number 1 training partner. So we know that his Muay Thai is very, very slick. Training at Novo now, he's going to be very good. But the question is, does he have enough to beat Cub Swanson, who, as we know, is on a bit of a rough patch? He's got 2 losses in a row, but in his defense, one was against Frankie Edgar, who is a monster right now and is absolutely just murdering everybody that they put in front of him. And his other loss was against Max Holloway, who's really come out of his shell and is really looking like a legit title contender in that division. So, sure he lost, but it was against very, very tough opposition. And I think that going up against Hakran Diaz, he'll probably just have a little bit too much. He's got really good striking. He's got really good wrestling. Not wrestling, excuse me. He's got some slick submissions. So I think he'll probably get a second round TKO and finish Diaz. Next up, we got the Kona main event, which is Rose Namajunas versus Tecia Torres. This is probably going to be a typical striker versus grappler match. We've seen in the past that Namajunas does struggle big time against wrestlers, like she did against Carla Esparza, who just grinded her out and mauled her in that title fight they had. And Tecia Torres is very similar to Carla Esparza because she's just a wrestler, whereas Namajunas is a very flashy and she's a really good kickboxer. she doesn't have that much power. But you saw against what she can do against Paige Van Zandt. She's very, very tough. And it'll be interesting to see if she has made the improvements that she needs to have made in order to compete with a very high-level wrestler, at least in the women's division, that kind of level. But I think that she probably has. She looked very good against Paige Van Zandt, and I think she's going to pull out a decision. Next up, we're going to go to the main event, Glover Teixeira versus Rashad Evans. I think this is probably an underrated fight because Glover Teixeira is very heavy-handed, so the knockouts there. Rashad Evans, we've known he's been knocked out plenty of times before. But he is a very good fighter, even though he did lose his last fight against Ryan Bader, and he has been out for the last couple of years. But I think that Rashad Evans has a good chance to come back here, and if he uses his footwork, maybe take Teixeira down and grapple him out, because we saw what Phil Davis did to him. If Rashad can do the similar thing, then I think he does have a chance of winning. But I think Teixeira's his power and his boxing is just going to be a little bit too much, and I think he's going to knock out Rashad Evans in the second round. But I think this is going to be a pretty entertaining fight, actually. I think people maybe are sleeping on it, and the card in general actually looks really good. Obviously, it would have been much better had Khabib and El Cucuy gone against each other. And actually, I did forget about Khabib's fight. I wasn't going to touch on it, but I guess I will. He's fighting his replacement on very short notice, Daryl Horcher. I don't know anything about him, but let's just be real. I mean, Khabib's probably the best guy in that division. He's just going to toss the guy around, and he's probably going to finish him. If not finish him, and he's just going to have a fun time tossing him across the cage, much like he did against Dos Anjos, but even more brutal, I would say. And yeah, that's okay. That's it for this card. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to win. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Check out my gaming channel. The link will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.